The article this video is based on was originally posted on The Athletic and was written by Rafa Benitez himself. To ensure you don't miss more articles from Rafa, head over to www.theathletic.com/RabonaTV to get started on a free 30-day trial and 50% off your annual fee. On March 11th, 2016, Newcastle fans heard the inevitable announcement that Steve McClaren had been sacked. It made sense. Newcastle were floundering with 6 victories from 28 matches, accumulating just 24 points. When Gary Lineker said that, quote, "the running of the club is beyond shambolic," Steve Howie agreed and said, £80 million spent by McClaren prior to the season got him the sack by mid-March. But on the same day Newcastle announced McClaren's marching orders, they also announced that they already had a replacement, Rafa Benitez. Of course, Benitez's family lives on Merseyside due to the 6 years he spent as the manager of Liverpool starting back in 2004. Replacing French manager Gérard Houllier, Benitez was tasked with returning the glory to Liverpool, and while he couldn't deliver a league title, to be fair, nobody has been able to since 1990, Benitez helped mastermind Liverpool's historic Champions League run and win in 2005. 3-goal comebacks, shootouts, Dudek, and whatnot. That wasn't his only stint in England though, as Benitez took over as a caretaker manager for Chelsea back in November of 2012. While the Chelsea faithful made their feelings known regarding the Spanish manager taking the reins at their club, what with his affiliation with Liverpool, and despite dropping out of both domestic cup competitions under his watch, Chelsea still managed to attain a 3rd place finish. And he guided them to a Europa League title. 3rd place and a Europa League title. Not bad for an interim manager. But even prior to his time in England, Rafael Benitez achieved the massive accomplishment of winning 2 La Liga titles in 3 seasons with Valencia, as well as the UEFA Cup in 2004. So Newcastle, a team in 19th and looking a sure thing as far as relegation goes, was getting a more than capable manager when they had sacked McClaren. Benitez was just coming off a very forgettable 7 months at Real Madrid and was itching to get back to England. As Rafa himself wrote in his column on The Athletic on August 12th, 2019, "When I joined Newcastle in 2016, I did it with all my heart. I could feel the history and see the potential of the club, and I wanted to be part of a project and to stay close to my family on Merseyside." Newcastle managing director Lee Charnley said on the day Rafa was hired that, quote, "Our sole focus now is to give our full support to Rafa, his coaching team, and the players in order to secure our status in the Premier League," end quote. Well, Newcastle were unable to stay up despite winning their final 6 matches. Their bitter rival Sunderland claimed the final safe place, but the first aspect of what Charnley said has a slight ring of irony in it, in light of Rafa's recent article with The Athletic. That bit about "our sole focus now is to give our full support to Rafa" didn't last throughout his tenure, apparently. However, Rafa was willing to stay with Newcastle despite speculation that he would leave if they were relegated. In his column, Rafa writes, "I tried to do my best every day, even staying when we went down to the Championship and saying no to other offers." Managing in the 2nd division of English football probably wasn't a challenge that Benitez saw himself getting into, but it's one he relished, as he led Newcastle to 1st place in the 2016-17 championship season with 94 points, and back into the promised land of the Premier League. It was clear that Newcastle needed investment in order to try to thrive in the top flight, and while a few players were brought in for Rafa, it wasn't easy going. The gulf in his talent pool in comparison to other teams was evident, and a stretch of 9 matches from the end of October to mid-December saw Newcastle go winless in 9, losing 8 and drawing once. Thankfully for them, a stretch from January to mid-April would see Newcastle lose just 3 times, to Liverpool once, and Manchester City twice, the eventual champions, of course. But this rare patch of good form took Newcastle up to 10th, where they would stay for the remainder of the season. Now, Mike Ashley, the owner of Newcastle, has built up a reputation of being a miserly owner, reluctant to invest in his club, much to the frustration of the fans and of course managers alike, Benitez being no exception. His main problems with the club weren't just his salary, as Ashley and Charnley have since alluded to. Benitez revealed through The Athletic that the club, as expected by most, was extremely short-sighted in their organization and philosophy. Not only was Ashley reluctant to spend money on players that Benitez and Newcastle desperately required, across Benitez's tenure with Newcastle in the Premier League, he had a net spend of £11 million, but they weren't willing to spend it on their youth academies either. And this is where Benitez's major problem with the administration lay. Despite the ongoing fight for control over the club decisions throughout the 2018-19 season, Benitez once again managed to keep Newcastle afloat, finishing in 13th place. However, throughout the season, Benitez hoped that Charnley and Ashley would change their mentality, perhaps in vain, and that unless there was a change in ownership, he would be leaving Newcastle once his contract was up at the end of the season. As mentioned earlier when writing for The Athletic, Benitez said he wanted to be part of a project that involved investing in Newcastle's youth system and returning a sense of pride back into a club whose successes seemed like they were an age ago by now. But what were the club interested in? As Benitez writes, "They told me they didn't want to invest in the academy or the training ground. Their idea of a project was a policy of signing players under 24, and in my opinion, the budget available was not enough to compete for the top 10. Well, and this is just a side note of course, when Newcastle did indeed finish in the top 10 in their return to the Premier League under Benitez during the 17-18 season, he and his coaching staff were the only members of the squad that didn't receive a bonus. Benitez says in his column on The Athletic, "That felt like a punishment for me not signing an extension. I couldn't explain that in public because I was not allowed to talk to the press without their permission. So I was waiting until June of 2019, like every fan, hoping there would be good news about Newcastle's prospective takeover. Newcastle made him a contract offer, but an offer that he had to refuse, and that it was allegedly a slap in the face. Benitez claims that the offer was for the same salary that he had originally signed on for with Newcastle, and would ensure that he had less of a say in signing players." Benitez continues in his article, "After 3 years of unfulfilled promises, I didn't trust them. So, by the end, I knew there would not be a proper offer, and they knew I was not signing." With the alleged takeover falling through, Benitez felt he needed to secure employment as other offers from Europe were disappearing, so he moved to China due to a lowball offer from Newcastle, the lessening of his control at the club, the reluctance to improve the training facilities, and a difference in the ideology behind the development of youth players. However, Lee Charnley didn't mention any of these things. No. Instead, Lee Charnley wrote in Newcastle United's matchday program for their opening 2019-20 Premier League fixture against Arsenal that, quote, "We understand and expected the disappointment that Rafa's departure caused. We strongly believe we went beyond what could reasonably be asked in order to keep him. But let's be clear, he moved to China for money. The offer he received was too tempting." Well, that certainly flies in the face of what we now know already from Rafa's column, but he went further. Remember when he stayed with Newcastle despite their relegation? Let's revisit that quote from his column. "I tried to do my best every day, even staying when we went down to the championship and saying no to other offers. Bigger offers than the one I recently accepted with Dalian Yifang, by the way. If I was interested in moving for the money, as Charnley stated, I could have done it much earlier." So as far as speaking about Newcastle and setting the record straight, Benitez writes, "Hopefully it will be the last time I have to do so. In the future, I want to write about football and nothing but football." Which of course he'll be doing with his regular column on The Athletic, something you probably won't want to miss. So again, to ensure you don't miss anything, head to www.theathletic.com/RabonaTV to get a free 30-day trial on top of 50% off of your annual subscription. Benitez will be chronicling his journey in China, what life's like there, his thoughts on the Chinese Super League, as well as his take on things that are happening in the English Premier League and football in general. Plus, on top of that, The Athletic is working with some of the best journalists of football such as Raphael Benitez, David Ornstein, Amy Lawrence, James Pearce, award-winning writer Danny Taylor, and many more, bringing you in-depth coverage of your favorite teams and competitions. Competitions like the Bundesliga, Premier League, MLS, Champions League, and more. All at your fingertips via their app or online, giving you the option to follow the feeds of your favorite writers, clubs, or competitions. So, support Rabona TV by heading to www.theathletic.com/RabonaTV, or for you Brits out there, www.theathletic.co.uk/RabonaTV, and in turn you'll get 30 days for free, 50% off your annual fee, and access to some incredible sports journalism. Thanks so much for watching, guys. I'm quite choosy about who I work with. They have to be a company I really stand behind and a product I wouldn't hesitate to use myself. So when The Athletic came to me, I was excited, as they've assembled an awesome team of journalists and I really dig what they have going on there. And I think you will too. As always, I'm Adrian and I love you and I thank you so much for watching. If you want more from Rabona TV, you just need to hit subscribe. But other than that, I'll see you in the next video. If you hit subscribe. Okay, bye.